Hi, everyone. My name is Allison, and I'm the executive director of Spark and the principal investigator for the projects of Brighter Spark Applied Research. And we have several members of the Brighter Spark Applied Research team here who are also going to be talking. And since we're a fairly small group, feel free to just use the raise hands function or signal in chat that you want to weigh in, and it can be much more discussion. So this is what we wanted to do, is to break this out into two different parts. So the first is to talk about why applied research is important, and then the ways in which it's slightly different from the research that is happening more traditionally within academic institutions. And then the second part, we're going to talk about Brighter Spark applied research, particularly how we work, what it's like for people who work in the program, and then talk about a couple of positions that we have open, which Lynn is posting right now in the chat. In case you are interested, that you have the opportunity to apply for those. Okay, so applied research. I think the easiest way to talk about this is to talk a little bit about my own experience. So when I finished graduate school, I was looking for a job. And the first job that I got was working as a consultant to organizations that were trying to make massive changes. So I worked for a foundation, and that foundation basically gave me and a bunch of other people to states to reform their child welfare or juvenile justice systems. And we would go in and we'd spend usually 2 to 3 years trying to understand the system perfectly, and then develop interventions to try to change the culture of it, make the outcomes for the kids in the system better, and then measure all of that change. And my experience going into that out of graduate school, it was a really rude awakening, because I had a huge background in intensive statistics and econometrics. I had done a whole lot of different qualitative work, ethnographies, interviews. I thought that I had the chops. And then I went into this setting where it's a real organization that has to change, and I had responsibility for that. And suddenly it felt like everything that I had learned in school wasn't enough. And part of building Spark has been about this recognition that many of you are not going to spend the rest of your professional life within academia. And so, to the extent that we can, we want Spark to be able to support taking all the really excellent skills that are being learned within your programs and figuring out how those apply to situations where you're dealing with all kinds of politics and personalities and all these other sort of complicating factors that really impact what you're able to do and how you're able to share the results that you've built. And so the part of what we do with Brighter Spark Applied Research, it gets called contract research. Basically, either individual researchers at the university or organizations in the community will reach out to us, and they will have a research or an evaluation question that they need answered. And they will ask us to design a study, develop instruments, implement all that, do the analysis, and then write up a report. So the entirety of kind of a research process, usually within 6 months to 2 years. And it's a really interesting experience, because a lot of times, at least for me as a researcher, you're only working with kind of one part of the process. And with contract research, you're working with the entire process again and again. So I think it helps really to make it clear the entirety of what a research process looks like, and then the challenges and problems that come up in every stage of the research process, and where your process is really rigorous and where it starts to fall apart. Anyone want to talk about why applied research, what the um, connection to what you're learning in school is? any comments on this piece, feel free to raise anything you're thinking about.
I'm happy to chat about it, but from the perspective of somebody on the team, if you'd like that.
Yeah, well,
Okay. So, hi, everybody. My name's Jeff. I'm on the applied research team with Spark and have been since the fall of 2020. I'm a PhD student with the School of Social Work, but have come back to school after many years of a break after leaving undergrad and grad school. And so I definitely have shifted more so into an interest in research, but so much of my background comes from frontline practice and management. And the what I really see is with applied research is there's such a strong tangible connection as to what we're looking into, what we're interrogating, and how that translates into direct practice and interventions, whether it be how we're going to inform program design or service provision, how we're arranging policies. And and the outcome of that has immediate impacts on either those working within certain agencies or the individuals who are accessing services or support throughout those agencies. And that's one of the really exciting things about applied research, which is a bit of the kind of refreshing difference between what we often see in some traditional forms of academic research is the connection between the creation of the knowledge and the application of it. And you see it making a difference somehow right away. And it's one of the things that I think keeps me involved in research because I've definitely engaged in research in the past where sometimes at the end of it, you're like, I've learned a lot and that was great. You might do like a little bit of knowledge dissemination and some sharing of that and some teaching. But then you just have this feeling that it's just sitting on a shelf somewhere, or you have this hope that I've done this, now it's available, and I hope that somebody else will take it and do something with it. Whereas the work that we're doing, we're not only doing that initial research work, but then we're also the ones that get to enjoy the experience of helping turn that into real life changes and application.
and that's a big part of the challenge that doesn't, and again, this is not in any way to critique how research is taught within academia. The focus of teaching research within academia is the basic skills. I think what a lot of what we've learned, though, is that this process of being able to help people actually implement and translate what's found, that is its own big challenge. And it's a very different kind of challenge than the research itself. Alexandra, it looks like you've got something to say.
Yeah, I really identified with what Jeff was saying about applied research, and I'm a PhD student in sociology, and I focus on education research, and so I want to be able to take what my research skills and apply it to helping with policy development, curricula development, also working with nonprofits and school boards and doing research that will benefit them. And I'm working with a nonprofit right now doing a program report for a project that they're working on. And so I find applied research to be really valuable, but I want to be able to refine those skills because I do find that it's a bit different than just doing research in the academic world.
Yeah, no, it really is different. And I think this is funny. In the US where I'm from, I have a consulting company where people pay me to consult with them. And part of my business is actually people who decide, usually after a PhD, going that they want to do evaluation. And so they go and they become evaluators and they get clients. And then that challenge of kind of how they learn to do research in school right up against the time pressures and the budget pressures of the organization shows up. And a lot of these are new evaluators get in a lot of trouble. And so somehow my name got associated with I'm the one who helps young evaluators get out of trouble. And so this has become a weird little part of my side business where I help people who are in problems with their clients be able to figure out how to extract themselves. Because that tension between the research process and then all of the restraints of the organization, it's very real. And even 20 odd years into doing applied research, I still struggle with it. Not sure how to say your name, Aquulo?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind the pronunciation.
How do you say it? Aquulu.
Yeah.
Close enough?
I don't mind any pronunciation, honestly. Okay, so I really want to be part of this because I'm currently a PhD student with economics department. And oftentimes when you're doing when you're doing like an advanced degree, like a PhD, and you're trying to communicate the relevance of what you're studying and the difference your research can make, they all seem fictional. And by the time people see models and the rest of it. So I'm interested in being able to like participate actively to policy analysis and make contributions to real life policies. For example, what is happening in this COVID-19 period? Yesterday, I received an email from my son's school asking for parents should choose time for extra lessons because they want the children to catch up. They feel they've lost time during the pandemic. We can have a research evaluating the children really lose time during the pandemic. Can they still catch up and all that? I want to be able to like contribute to real life situations and help to resolve real life issues. That's why I'm interested in being part of this. Thank you.
That's cool. Permita, I don't know if you want to talk from an econ perspective.
I literally
Have
just
you had
raised
to
my
raise it? Right.
hand. Yeah, I just raised it. Honestly, I am in my final year of undergraduate studies in econ at McMaster, and sometimes my biggest critique of my degree is that the research economists do, it feels like it just you do it and then it goes up in a vacuum. It just you don't know where it ends up, and I feel like that's the problem when you're looking at like really abstract models, big data, that it is an issue. Whereas what I love about Spark is that it's so in the moment. Like what you do, you can see the effects of it in your lifetime, which is not something economists can see. And that's one of my favorite things about working here is that I actually saw the benefits of research in real time, which is not something I feel like academia really prepared me for or even gave me any ideas about what to expect. So yeah, definitely. I just wanted to echo the problems with economics. That's a degree.
I'm laughing a little because we had a talk. What was this last week? Where Permita's about quantitative analysis with being able to account for differences in race. And there was a very lively discussion between Permita and the speaker about whether or not you were allowed to do particular things within statistical models. And this recognition that we all come from our disciplinary backgrounds. And part of what I love about Brighter Spark and part of why I'm so excited to be able to build the teams that we build is that people are coming from such different disciplinary backgrounds and perspectives. And you're often working with something that you don't actually know from your own background, that you have to figure out how to be able to apply your understanding and what to a different kind of challenge. For instance, we have a student on the team who is primarily a quantitative sociologist, finished her PhD, and we started having her think about the development of a process where we could get a bunch of bunch of young adults talking about how they experienced a program. And so trying to build out this very qualitative process and be able to measure something at the end of it was a very different kind of experience from what she's, I think, I don't know if anyone else on the team wants to talk about this. This is part of what it is, being able to push past the methods that you most typically use and try your hands at other methods.
That's been a challenging, but one of the most fun parts of being on the team. I come from a background that is not quantitative in nature. So being able to work on projects where we're engaging a mixed methodology approach, and working with fellow team members that have such different backgrounds than what I have. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to learn from them. And I've definitely built both like quantitative research skills, technological skills that I didn't have earlier by way of being able to engage in kind of this team-based approach to working on the research and been able to the benefits of dabbling in methodologies that I haven't had the experience with before. And it's not only been helpful then for additional contracts that we've taken on at Spark, but even for other work I'm engaged in and my own research in my program, it's really contributed to that as well.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jeff said because my favorite thing about this job is that it doesn't feel like a job. It always feels like a learning experience, which is not something that many people can say about a research assistant position, which is why I think it's misleading to call it a research assistant position because you're doing so much more than what a typical research assistant is. I've learned so much about qualitative analysis that my econ undergrad just does not teach you at all. I feel so much more confident in my abilities as a researcher, as someone who wants to go into research in the future, because of this position. So I just want, if you're interested, I want you to keep in mind that it's an amazing place to work because you're always learning, and no matter how much you think you go into it knowing, you can always learn more. Yeah.
That's one of the coolest things for me. It's a shame Mohammed can't be here. I love to bring people on the team who have completely non-social science backgrounds because I think that it brings a really different flavors. One of our team members, Mohammed, is a PhD student in mechanical engineering. And the thing about engineers is they're incredibly good about processes. And whereas those of us who are social scientists on the team have a lot of strengths, that ability to have someone who just instantly thinks in processes and being able to diagram out systems and getting clarity about what causes what, it's a huge advantage. And it's the interesting thing about trying to build the team is when we take on new people and try to build up the team, it's always one part of it is how great are your individual skills? What can you bring? But then a big part of it is also how does it fit with what everyone else is doing? And can we have a team that has such a wide range of experiences and backgrounds and methodological expertise that we can cover basically any challenge that shows up? And that's the interesting thing is because I will get a call or an email that says, "Hey, can you take on this project?" And we don't know anything about it going in. And a lot of times things just show up and we have to be able to respond to what it is that the organization is asking us to do. And so it becomes really important that we have such a wide range of ways of being able to approach what people are asking, that we're not trying to force what the organization wants into what we can do. But we truly as a team are able to do just about any kind of applied research challenge. And that's always my goal is that there's nothing that there are some things someone might ask us to do that we wouldn't want to do, but that there's nothing someone at a community organization or a researcher would ask us to do that we couldn't do. So I think that's really important in when we're thinking about now adding new people to the team. If you apply and you're not selected, odds are very good that it is not about you. It's about how you fit with the other expertise on the team. Nivera, did you want to say anything?
After hearing everybody speak, I understand that everybody has gone on to grad school or has done PhD projects or has enough work experience to be able to iterate like how Spark has contributed to their development. But for me, Spark is my first work experience ever in university, and it's the only one I've known. So for everyone who doesn't know, I actually joined Spark just to develop a curriculum like this winter semester of my first year, and I've just been continuing along. And Allison has gradually introduced me to this sort of applied research work we do with our clients. So I think that's been my only experience with research. I would say it's not like any other research positions, but I wouldn't necessarily know because I've had no other research positions. But from what I hear from others, I'm very grateful to be here because I don't think I would have the opportunity to work as hands on as I do in Spark. And for me to said, it's constantly a learning process. I'm already learning about research, but the job itself is a constant learning process itself. That's been very rewarding to work with. And I won't lie, like it has been difficult for me because I don't necessarily know what to do right off the bat. And I've always only taken my team's guidance on like how to do it. I don't think I'm necessarily ready to be able to evaluate myself or be able to approach a client's problem by myself. But I'm really happy that I have a very dynamic team to be able to learn from this and just basically grow professionally in this area. So it's been very good for me. And I hope to stick around as long as Allison will have me.
That's for as long as you're willing to stay.
Of course, you have me. You're stuck with me.
Any other sort of comments and questions about generally what we do? We could also talk a little bit about the kinds of projects that we work on, if that would be helpful.
I do have a quick question before you guys talk about your projects, which I certainly am interested in. I just wanted to know regarding the job itself, is it a part of the general CUPE union that in graduate studies, TAs and RAs are generally a part of? Because for that, I know there is a limit of hours. So that would be a factor into whether I could apply or not.
Yes, and Jeff can talk all about the limit of hours. These are classified as temp contract positions, but and maybe there are multiple hour requirements. There are hour requirements for grad students. And so all of the grad students on our team have to figure out the extent to which it fits given their other responsibilities. Jeff, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So, uh, yeah, these positions technically don't fall under the QP, the same one as like TA ships or RA ships in lieu of a TA ship for grad students. But I know the kind of hour cap comes from School of Graduate Studies. While that limit is there, and I'll have to be careful about how I go about phrasing this, especially because I know it's recorded. I would. So for things like the QBTA ships and RA ships, those are very hard to. There's a really flexibility about how those contracts can change. But if you're also engaged in other types of work on campus, I would encourage you to explore conversations around how compensation could be facilitated that do not fall under like employment that would be seen on a T4. There are ways in which different jobs or activities on campus can be reconsidered as small research scholarships, let's say. So those hours don't actually go through School of Grad Studies and HR. So it does open up like those counted hours. Also, it's not always that School of Grad Studies will monitor them closely. And it's like the old saying of better to ask forgiveness than permission. There's a lot of people who have gone over, and oftentimes, if there was an issue to occur, if you're able to explain why the work that you're doing is actually relevant to your academic progression, your professional development, that's understandable. I know the base for why those hours are there is just to ensure grad students have time that they're able to dedicate to their coursework and that their ability to keep up with that isn't being negatively impacted. Yeah, there's ways to get creative and justify sometimes working more than what School of Grad Studies might suggest.
I have a feeling we should so not have been talking about that. Alexandra.
I'm just wondering if the positions run through the summer or is it just within the school year?
No, we run through the summer, and this is part of doing projects with community organizations. Is the academic calendar has no relevance to what we're doing to the extent that we can. When we have bulk projects, for instance, we can control timing on some of the data cleaning projects. And to the extent that we can, we try to do things like that over the summer where people can offer work more hours, there's more flexibility. But in general, all of our projects continue the whole year long, and we have to be able to balance out what individual people on the team can do over the summer, and then what the workload looks like. Shift is talking about the kinds of projects that we do. There are basically three different kinds of projects that people ask us to do for. The first is where they are trying to figure out what they should do. They know that there's a particular problem, and that they want to intervene in it. Maybe they have an initial idea of what they want to do, but they don't really understand all of what else is out there. They don't really understand how their particular intervention might be beneficial, or even if it would be beneficial to the groups that they're working with. They really need someone to be able to give them a sense of the landscape. We have some projects like that where usually what it is that there's a new director coming into the organization, and they're looking at what they've done and they're saying, I don't know if what we're doing now fits with the population that we have, the population that sort of needs help. And so we need more information about the different communities and what's happening, and then to be able to link to what we're actually doing. So that's one kind of assessment, both strengths and needs. A second type is an organization is looking to make a change in what they're doing, their actual practice. And we do a combination of an assessment of what they're doing now, and then try different kinds of changes, see what happens. We're actually just about to start one of these where a client runs a program for young adults, and they are trying to refresh a lot of services that haven't been refreshed in about 15 years. And so our idea is to basically bring in something totally new and different right away in order to be able to see what that does, how that affects the current system, and kind of what it brings out. And that's going to be able to help us be able to know how to go forward in terms of making change. Because one of the things that we know about humans is that change is difficult for people. And within organizations, it's really easy for just a couple of people in key positions to stop change from happening. And so the way that you approach being able to make an organizational change happen in the order that things happen in is really important to being able to make sure that what you're going to do is going to be effective and stick. So that's the second type of organizational change efforts. The third type is where an organization is doing a particular kind of project and they want to get better at it. They've been doing it for a while, they know what they're doing, but they're not terribly confident that they have fully figured it out. And so they want us to do an evaluation of their work that is really focused on what they need to know to be able to make sure that what they're doing is actually helpful to the clients. And sometimes that's about the particular intervention and how they do it, but sometimes it's more subtle than that. For instance, we were working with an organization that was focused on trying to help people in not-for-profits really incorporate equity, diversity, and inclusion into their practices. And the intervention itself was great, but when you looked at the nature of the challenge of that, of trying to do that, the nature of the challenge was just bigger than what the project was. And this happens a lot of times. It's not really just what your effort as an organization is. It's how it fits with the nature of the problem and how it fits with the priorities of the community that you're working with. If those things aren't right, the very best kind of project isn't going to work well. So we always have to look at at all of those pieces. And then the fourth kind is organizations that are doing something that they think is really great. They think it's having a big impact and they don't have the evidence to be able to ask for a lot more money. And so they hire us to do what's called an impact evaluation that looks directly at what has changed in the lives of the people or participants in this program and what is the broader social benefit of those changes. So that can be youth moving from a state where they're unemployed to a state where they're employed. We do some work with people that have long term histories of substance use that are going through a withdrawal program. The context looks different, but the challenge of being able to effectively measure the changes in individual people's lives and then what that means to the broader society is the same. And that's probably the hardest of our evaluation type of our project types and maybe the most common. Does anyone on the team want to say anything else about the nature of the projects?
What's really interesting is even if we're doing in the broad sense, we might be doing two different types of impact evaluations or two different organizational, having that focus. The way in which we then go about doing it is completely different at times in the unique methods in which we're facilitating that work because we want it to be so uniquely reflective of the exact needs and both the culture of the organization and the community in which is involved with that organization. And despite kind of on the surface level of possibly doing similar types of either research or evaluation, the ways in which the rubber hits the road for us looks very different. But it's nice because then you know that what you're doing is specifically molded for the clients that we're working with. And so it it feels like you're doing very different work, even if the goals are the same. It always feels very different, which is one of the things that makes it, I think, easy to do this work in a way because you never feel like you're bogged down doing the same thing over and over again because the dynamics are always so different, which I really enjoy about that type of work.
Looks like there's a question in chat. Graduating students. Yes, absolutely. You can apply. Alexandra?
I was just wondering if you can tell us how you get clients. So, what's that process like for them, and how do clients find out about the Spark program?
Yeah. So at some point, we may actually make some efforts at reaching out and finding clients. As of now, we haven't. There is such a demand for applied researchers and evaluators, and there aren't nearly enough who are very good at it. And a lot, pretty much, yeah, every referral we've had now has been someone at the university that knows someone within an organization and is, hey, these people could benefit from what you're doing, or an organization talking to another organization. Yeah. As we grow and as we bring on another staff person who's going to full time be working with the Brighter Spark team, we're hoping to get to a place where it actually makes sense. to Also, let people know that we exist. But as of now, it's entirely word of mouth.
Might I add that word of mouth alone has grown us a lot. So I'm just saying, like we got a lot of work, so it's not a shortage or anything.
Oh, no. And this is one of the interesting things about sort of contract work is that there are very much sort of periods of feast and famine where you might have part of what Jeff was talking about in terms of we're really building the projects out for a client. also means that sometimes you will have a client where there'll be a break of 6 months, 9 months, where they're just trying to digest the first phase of work we did. And then they're going to come back to us to be able to do something new with that piece. But they have to go through their own process within their organization to figure it out. And always the panic is what happens if everyone comes back to us at the exact same time. And so this is part of growing the team. And part of what we have to figure out in growing the team is how to be able to manage the level of growth that we're seeing. Because this is only, Brighter Spark is only, what, year and a half, 2 years old. We've never been where we are now. It is going to be a real process to make sure that we're growing in a way where we're not letting down any of our clients, and that it's still a really good experience for everyone who's on the team, and everyone's still learning, and we're not just trying to force production. So it's not a small challenge. The positions, let's talk a little bit about those. There are two that are more what we've been talking about. These kind of, we've renamed it from, even though officially they're called RA positions, we are calling them, now I'm trying to remember, apprenticeship and applied research, I believe, because as was discussed, this isn't really an RA-ship. And it's just the way it works is just really different from that. So there are two of those positions. Then there is a position, let me pull up what you have for the names of these, Lynn. Then there's a position that I think is called Web Assistant. Yes, 43502. And that is actually focused on beginning to do the marketing work. So we know that as part of our growth, we are going to start marketing not just Brighter Spark, but other initiatives of Spark. So we also have a secure data facility, and we have an absolutely beautiful suite of focus group observation and interview rooms that have full video and audio capability that people can rent out. And we are launching an education program for community organizations in applied research. All of that, we're going to have to start spreading the message that we're doing all of that. And this web assistant position is specifically around being able to, I'm sorry, no. The marketing and communications assistant 43504 is about being able to do that communication and start raising the profile of what we do. And then we'll be really involved with the team in fully understanding exactly what our projects look like and how to talk about and communicate them. And then the web assistant position is actually someone that has videography experience. So has done documentary shorts, something like that, and is really comfortable both with filming and with editing. We have one particular client where a big part of what we're going to be doing, particularly over the summer and then into the early fall, is working with staff of the organization to be able to talk about their experiences. And we're going to use a methodology called video voice and use this opportunity to be able to also produce materials that are going to be useful to them in raising the profile of their project. So that, yeah, two positions that are more kind of standard Brighter Spark positions, one that is working with this particular project and requires videography experience, and then one that is about marketing Brighter Spark and related efforts. Okay, any final thoughts from the Brighter Spark team?
My final thoughts is that this is a great place to work. The team is amazing. And I hope that this has definitely piqued your interest in applying, because I can't even explain just how grateful I am for this position, because how much I've learned. It exceeds whatever I learned in undergrad. So I think that it's a really great position to be in.
I just saw quickly, Rachel asked a question about being remote or in person. Brighter Spark has become a team within the pandemic. We've done all of our stuff remotely. I think that so Permita is actually in our Spark space. And as we have the space, we're probably going to do some meeting in person, but it's not the dominant mode. We've worked fine remotely. So I think it's going to be up to the team how often we meet in person. Yeah, we haven't even really discussed. Jeff, any final thoughts?
I'd say it's just really nice to see so many people here and showing interest in the positions posted. I think one of the great things, and already hearing that people are here from different academic backgrounds, that these opportunities really are an exciting opportunity to contribute your knowledge and skills, but also build knowledge and skills that you'll be able to transfer into your own work and your future work as well. And yeah, it's been a great opportunity to work closely with a very dynamic research team and have that connection to community organizations and really engage in work and see the work start to transfer into action within community.
Rivera, any final thoughts?
Yeah, Jeff pretty much summed it up, but I also have the same thing to say as everybody else. It is like a very good place to work. And what I really appreciated is that Brighter Spark is extremely flexible to everybody. So I always found that with whatever my academic needs are, my summer plans, like Brighter Spark has been extremely understanding of it and has allowed me to work at my own pace. And I appreciate that. It hasn't made, aside from working with clients, like all our other projects within the organization is not necessarily rushed. And it's we really value the process in the work we do here and we like being thorough. That's something I really do appreciate. And it's like a practice I'll carry on in my future professional career.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we'll be available if you have any questions. I hope you will consider applying and sending it to anyone else who you think that this might be the right opportunity for.